Now that we have defined what is a cost, what does cost mean? Cost means an actual plus notional. Cost means actual, that is the cash outflow, plus what is attributable, both put together is what we call it as a cost. Now that we know that, let us worry about different kinds of costs out there. There are 4 kinds of costs. Sir, what is the 4 kinds of costs out there? Now let us get back. I explained what is notional cost. Cost that is attributable. Cost that can be assigned out there in the process. Assigned, attributable in the process. Now, for example, if I have to say what is going to be a cost out there. So, supposing I had a factory shed in this particular case, I had a factory shed in this case, I may have to hire a watchman to do it, I may have to have a clerical staff to do it if I had done. So, I would have to pay charge to a clerical staff, I would have to pay charge to a watchman, then all those becomes at this stage when I have to arrive at the cost, all those notional costs I have to add here. That is notional cost of clerical staff, notional cost of watchman, so on and so forth out there, and then I have to add. So, if you add all that, the cost will be very high. Yes, I am not saying that, sir, but we will not be able to sell it in the market. I have to know what is the true cost. Now, when I have to get 10,000, when I get a 10,000, supposing you say you don't add all that, what did you do? When you don't add all that, you arrived at the cost of 99. Now, you have an order for 10,000 pieces. Will you be able to sell it at 99? No, you will not be able to. Why? Because when you expand, all these costs will basically come and sit in your kitty out there. So, what am I doing out here? Let me arrive at the cost. Then let me decide if you want to sell it at a discount, because I will sell it at a discount because as of now these costs are not there. So, maybe I will give, I know this guy, I know this is a friend, I will say actual cost is 143. But because you are buying a, what do you call it, as a piece, a demo piece out there to check out whether it is going to work out there, I am giving you some discount out there. So, what happens? Then you can arrive at a discount and nothing, but your actual cost is known at this stage. So, the same way when we talk about all these things, we are talking about attributable cost out there, cost that can be assigned, attributed. Sir, what is the opportunity cost? The opportunity cost, it is different. Opportunity cost comes in only if there is an opportunity loss. Now, what is that opportunity? Let me take the same example of the tie. I do not sit in the courtyard and then make the tie. I manufacture the tie in the garage in my house, which is unused out there. So, it is manufactured in the garage which is unused out there. I manufacture the tie and sell. Now, when I calculate the cost, I will say attributable cost, that is notional cost out there, notional cost of the space for making the tie, any shared industrial set, whatever is the space, that is what I will put out, notional cost. Now, supposing in that same example, I am going to twist a little bit. I have a beautiful neighbor. My neighbor has the best possible Lamborghini, and my neighbor says, I want to park the Lamborghini in your garage because there is no space in my house to park the 10th car what I have bought out. Now, I have a choice. I can use that space for manufacturing the tie, or let it out to my neighbor for parking his or her 10th Lamborghini and charge some rent for it. Now, by deciding to manufacture the toy in the garage, I am losing on the rent which will be given by my neighbor for parking her or his 10th Lamborghini out there. So, what is happening? There is an opportunity loss because I am utilizing that space. You can argue, sir, then also why not you take the shared space? That shared space will be cheaper than the garage, the rent what you will get. Agreed. That is, if I imagine, if I am a businessman, if I am getting more rent from my neighbor and the rent is going to be higher than had I hired a space for manufacturing the tie in the industrial shed, shared space in industrial shed, then what I will do? I would move my manufacturing of tie to that industrial shed and then collect the rent from my neighbor because I will make more money in the process. So, I am hypothetically saying, Had I gone out in this particular case, I would have to pay almost the same space, same rent out there. So what happens? Here I am losing an opportunity of earning some money by utilizing this particular space for manufacturing the toy. So what happens? Then there is an opportunity loss. Then what happens? The opportunity cost comes in. One can still argue the space hired, shared space in the industrial site will be at 1/10 the cost of the garage out there. If it is at 1/10 the cost of the garage out there, then I should be a fool if I am losing the rent and still continue to manufacture the toy in my garage and lose the rent, which is going to be 10 times the space, 10 times the amount that I would have paid had I hired the space for manufacturing the toy. In such case, only notional cost will be considered out. In such case, only notional cost will be considered. If there is a clear opportunity loss, if there is a clear opportunity loss out there, that is, I have foregone the rent what I would have earned by deciding to manufacture the toy in that space out there, then there is an opportunity loss. Then what happens? Then I will consider the opportunity cost out there in this particular case out here. Then what happens? This space, the rent of the space out there, whatever I put out here, that rent of the space will not be notional, will become what is called as the opportunity in this particular case, opportunity loss. In that particular case, only if I am losing, if there is an opportunity loss, then I will consider the opportunity cost. Otherwise, I will consider only the notional cost. I can take one more example in the same thing. Supposing in the early example, what did I said? I have quit my job, I am cooling my legs, sitting in the, what do you call it, as in the sea facing house, by in my courtyard, cooling my legs out there. And I had no idea of manufacturing toy when I quit the job. Supposing I quit the job to do this toy manufacturing as a business, what is the labor cost then? The cost of labor, the notional cost of labor, what you take out here, the notional cost of labor, what you took will be the opportunity cost out there. Because what happens? I have quit the job, I have lost the opportunity to earn, and I am rather manufacturing this toy. So I am losing an opportunity there. So what happens? There is what is called as an opportunity loss. So opportunity cost come in and notional cost will not come in that particular case out there. So opportunity cost comes in only when there is an opportunity loss. If there is no opportunity loss, it does not come in out there. Then what is the next one? We talk about something called as sunk cost out. Now what is sunk cost in this particular case? Sunk cost, first and foremost, irrecoverable. It is a cost which you have incurred, which you are irrecoverable out there. So it is basically not considered for decision making. It is not considered for future decision making. It is not considered for future decision making. For example, many of the oil exploration, what do? They go on trying to find what it is called as oil reserves out there, oil reserves. They spend a lot of money trying to find oil reserve in a place, and they finally find a dry hole, or they find that the oil is so low that the cost of recovery itself will be more than the cost of sale out there, more than the revenue what they will get from the sale out there. So they abandon it out there. That is what is the cost they have spent out there. It is irrecoverable. The cost what they have spent, it is irrecoverable. It is already sunk in the business out there. I have bought a machinery for 5 lakhs. Technology has changed the day on which I bought the machinery. The machinery is being assembled in my shop floor. The machinery has started functioning, and within 2 days after the machinery functioning, I see a technology change out there. Now I cannot sell this machinery, nobody will buy this machinery out there. Now, whatever money I have spent on the machinery is sunk cost, it is gone, it is dead and gone, irrecoverable out there. Imagine if you had what is called as a many of the today we are talking about in diagnostic itself there are a lot of changes. Earlier there were mechanical, there are now today you are talking about what is called as electronic out there. Very simple, let us take an X-ray. X-ray machinery might be the same, but the way earlier if you had developed, if you had set up an entire facility to wash and print the film, X-ray film out there. Today if you look at it, people do not prefer that, people prefer what is called a digital X-ray on basically a CD out there, and then it is given, it is not even on a CD now, it is over email also. So what happens? If I had spent money in setting up that entire facility, the technology has changed, the entire money what I have spent is dead and gone, sunk cost, irrecoverable, useless, not used for decision making in future. That is irrespective. Only thing is that X-ray equipment machinery is there, I can use it, I can try and make digital X-rays and so on and so forth out there, but that money I have spent on setting up that facility of printing that entire film, sunk cost, gone. It is irrelevant out there, it is irrelevant for decision making. Then what is relevant cost in this particular case out there? Then what is relevant cost out there? What do you mean by relevant cost out there? Let me color this relevant cost out. Oh God, let me color this relevant cost. I am trying to get a different color. Let me see if I can get a different color out there. Yeah, I got a different color. Let me see what is relevant cost. Relevant cost, first it pertains to future. And it must differ between alternatives. It must differ between alternatives. It must pertain to future, it must differ between alternatives. So, what is this? I don't remember, I am not able to see this. Now, let us take in this for example, I am going to build an example out there. Imagine you have done a whatever institution and pursuing your whatever post graduation or whatever it is, and you have spent one semester already, and you have paid a fee for that semester of about 5 lakhs or whatever it is. At the end of the first semester, you have an offer from a better place. I would say better, you have an offer from another place which you like, and the fee there is about 15 lakhs is the fee out there, equally good place. In the new place, the fee is going to be 15 lakhs. In the existing place, the fee is, let us say, totally about 22 lakhs out there. Total fee is 22 lakhs, out of that you have already paid 5 lakhs out there. Now, if I have to make a decision only based on the fee, what will I compare? Will I compare 22 lakhs versus 15 lakhs at the end of one semester? No, because out of 22 lakhs I have already paid 5 lakhs, that is a sunk cost, gone, irrecoverable. What is the additional cost from that point of time I am going to pay? Future, pertains to future. In future, if I am going to continue in the same place, I am going to pay 17 lakhs more. If I am going to choose the other place from where I have got admission, I am going to pay 15 lakhs more, that is future, pertains to future. And what? It differs between alternatives. Existing place I have to pay 17 lakhs more, new place I am going to pay 15 lakhs. Now, that is what it differs between alternatives out there. Now, I am going to take only those two relevant for my decision making. My decision making, what is it relevant for my decision making? 17 lakhs is what I am going to pay additionally in the existing place, vis-a-vis 15 lakhs what I am going to pay in the other place where I have got admission. Now, that is what is the relevant cost for me to make decision. Both pertain to future that you are going to pay, and both differ between there is difference between the alternatives out there. So, that is what becomes what is called as the relevant cost here. The other 5 lakhs what you paid already, that is a sunk cost. It's paid, dead and gone. It is irrecoverable. If it is recoverable, then that will get added to relevant cost out. It is irrecoverable. So what happens? You understood basic kinds of cost: notional cost, attributable cost, opportunity cost only if there is an opportunity loss, sunk cost, irrecoverable cost, relevant cost for decision making pertains to future, differs between alternatives. Now we go a step further and then we talk about important classifications of cost out. What are the important classifications of cost out? There are two basic classifications of cost what we talk about. One, what we say is fixed cost, another what we say is variable cost. Then there is a direct cost, there is an indirect cost out. Now let us try and understand all these things. Fixed cost is such cost which will be incurred, which has no basic, what do you call it, as no relationship to the output. It is a cost you will incur irrespective of whether you manufacture or not. Simple example, imagine I pay rent for a place. The rent I will pay if I am manufacturing 5 pieces, if I am manufacturing 50,000 pieces, if I am manufacturing 500,000 pieces, or if I am not manufacturing at all for a month, my rent is going to be the same. It is going to be static out there, and that cost is what we call it as the fixed cost. Fixed cost remains fixed. It has no relationship to the output or your process out there. Rent, an example. Let me take my salary. I am not talking wage, I am talking about salary. Imagine during the COVID year, last 2 years back, people are not working. Many of them were just sitting at home because there was a complete lockdown out there. When it was lockdown, when people were sitting at home, people were getting what do you call it as the salaried class were getting what do you call it as the same amount of fixed salary. Only the incentive was different. So that is fixed, whether production is on, production is not on, whatever it is, the amount paid is the same. Classic example, rent for the shop floor. Rent what I pay will be the same irrespective of whether I manufacture, I do not manufacture, etc., etc. That is what we call it as typically the fixed cost. What is variable cost then? Variable cost, if I have to say variable cost will vary, what do you call it as variable cost in fact, what happened, oh God, why is not changing? Yeah, variable cost will basically vary with the output. Not exactly, yes and no. It varies, that is all. That is, it will not be static out there. Is it directly related to output? No, need not be, can be, need not be. Let me repeat, can be, need not be, but it varies. Let us say power consumption. It is a variable cost. It is not the same every month, it varies every month. What happens? That is what we call it as variable cost. Does it have a relationship with output? Might not. The power consumption of the machine will have a direct relationship to the output. The general power consumption, lighting of the factory will not have a relationship to the output out. Now, might not out. That is where you have to hold it for a minute. Now, when I explain what is called as direct cost, here I am believing linear relationship to the output. Here I believe in what is called as having a linear relationship to the output. Now, direct costs, are they variable? Yes, direct costs can be variable. 90% of the direct costs will be variable. 95% of the direct cost will be variable. What is that 5% which is not variable? Hold it, we will come to that. So what happens? Direct cost that can be traced back, cost that can be traced back to the product. For example, to manufacture this pen, let us say I need 5 granules of plastic to manufacture this pen, and each granule of plastic costs about 10 rupees out there. Now if I buy 50 granules of plastic, you know how many pens you can make, 50 divided by 5, that is 10 pens is what I can manufacture out. I buy 100 granules of plastic, whatever is the cost, 100 divided by 5 is what I can manufacture. I buy 10,000 granules of plastic, I can say 10,000 divided by 5 is the number of pens what I manufacture, including wastage and everything out together. So what happens? There is a direct relationship between the input and the output, that is direct relationship between the money that is spent and the output out there, and such cost is all called as direct cost. Where it varies, in this power consumption example, I said made a statement. There is a light which is mounted on the top of the machine. The light is switched on automatically when the machine is performing the job. The light is switched off when the machine is not performing the job. Then what happens? That particular cost of consumption of electricity of that particular light will vary with the output. The cost of power consumption of that particular light alone, which is mounted on top of the machine, will vary with the output out there, because every time there is a job on the machine, the light is on. Every time there is not a job on the machine, the light is off of there. So it has a direct linear relationship. It can be, output can be traced back to the product. Such is what we call, it is variable direct. Whereas I said general factory lighting, the general factory has been lit up, there are so many lights out there. That is variable, because today it might be on. There are too many. For example, if it is a month like October, there are half a dozen puja holidays out there. Then the lights in the factory may not be on, the production might be off. So what happens? The power consumption might be low in that month, so it can vary. But it has no relationship to the output out there. It has no relationship to the output. So what happens? Power consumption can also be 2 parts. So any expenditure that varies directly, linearly with the output, that has a linear relationship with the output, are all called as direct cost out there. Any expenditure that has a linear relationship with the output are all called as direct cost out there. Any expenditure and all direct expenditures, 95% of the direct expenditures are variable cost out there. All variable costs are not direct costs. Let me repeat, all variable costs are not direct costs, but most of the direct costs will be variable cost out there. Most of the direct costs will be variable cost out there. Now, cost which varies, which does not have a fixed pattern, variable cost. Cost which has a linear relationship with the output, direct cost. The direct cost out there. Then what is indirect cost? Indirect cost can be variable, can be fixed, can be both. Sir, how can it be variable? How can it be fixed? Let us take examples. The expenditure of the canteen which I run in my factory, it is variable. Yes, it is variable, because every month the expenditure is not the same. Does it have any linear relationship with output? No, it does not have any linear relationship with output. So what happens? It is a variable cost? Yes. It is an indirect cost. It is not a direct cost. It is not, doesn't have a linear relationship with the output out there. Yes. Now, imagine it can be fixed. For example, I pay a fixed amount of salary for my security staff in the factory. Salary, fixed amount, security staff, factory. Is it a fixed cost? Yes, it is a fixed cost, because monthly and month it is the same. Is it a direct cost? Is it directly relationship to the output? No, the securities and the production shop have no connection out there. So indirect cost which is fixed are variable. So, indirect costs are the costs which are not directly, which are not linear, which are not directly traceable to the output. Indirect costs are such costs which are not directly traceable to the output. I repeat, indirect costs are such costs which are not directly traceable to the output. Indirect cost can be variable, yes. Indirect cost can be fixed, yes. So, now we have covered what is fixed cost, cost which does not change, that can be normally indirect cost, normally variable cost varies every month, some vary with the output, that is called direct cost, some do not vary with the output, just varies, that is called indirect cost. Direct costs are such costs which varies with the output, linear relationship with output, direct cost, no linear relationship with output, but called as indirect cost out there. That is why I said, when you call fixed cost does not change with the change in volume. I manufacture 100,000 pieces, my fixed cost is rent is the same. I manufacture only one piece, rent is the same. I manufacture 100,000 pieces, rent is, fixed cost is the same. So, what happens? When the total overall fixed cost remains the same, whereas per unit it changes. 10,000 units I manufacture, I divide the cost by 10,000. 1 unit I manufacture, I divide it by 1. 1 lakh units I manufacture, I divide it by 1 lakh. So, per unit fixed cost always will change in the volume. Whereas when I talk about variable cost, total variable cost changes with the change in volume out there. Total variable cost will change. Per unit variable cost normally will not basically change with the change in volume out there in this particular case out there. Now, what happens when you talk about assigning cost to cost objects? That is what it is. This, my slide is pretty self-explanatory out there. Cost that can be easily and conveniently traced, that is what I said, linear relationship to the unit of the project is all what are other cost objects, they are all called as direct cost. Direct cost can be direct material, direct labor. Now, what is direct material? I told you 5 granules of plastic, I manufacture a pen, so direct material. What is direct labor? I pay for every unit the labor manufacturers, I pay him $1 out there, I pay him 10 rupees, I pay him $1. So, what happens if I paid 100 rupees in the day? That means 100 divided by, if each unit is, I am paying the labor is 10 rupees, then 100 divided by 10, then he has manufactured 10 units out there. So, it can be traced back, whatever it is. If I am paying per piece out there, that is what it is. Suppose I am paying per piece 10 rupees to a labor. In a day, I am paying 150 rupees to a labor. That means how many units he has manufactured? 15 units, that's all, 150 divided by 10 out there. So, that is the labor cost, which can be traced back to the unit of the product, all direct cost. Indirect cost that cannot be traced easily and conveniently traced to the unit of the product. Manufacturing overhead, it can be power consumption as I talked about. It can be what is called as my helpers in my factory shop floor, nothing relationship with the output out there. So, they are all what do you call it as overheads out there. Now, I said one more cost, that is what we call it as a common cost. Common costs basically are incurred to support the cost objects. That's what I said. Imagine a factory rent I pay for manufacturing 5 different kinds of products out there. Now, that is a common cost which to be shared between all the 5 products out there. That is what we call it as a common cost out there. Of course, what are the advantages of cost accounting? There are a lot of advantages. Number 1, I can fix the prices, I can do cost control, I can do the value of stock, it reveals what are the products which are not profitable, it can create the exact cause of increase or decrease in the profit or loss, what is contributing, whether the raw material prices are down, so my profit is high, raw material prices have gone up, because of that my profit is low, whatever it is, the reason for the profit or loss it can tell me. It can help me in decision making, it can help me in fixing prices, it can tell me at what level of profit, what level of efficiency I will make the maximum amount of money, so on and so forth. We will take up examples of all this. Now, when we talk about fixed cost, there are 2 kinds of fixed costs which we normally use. One is what we call it as discretionary fixed cost, another is what is called as committed fixed cost out there. Discretionary fixed cost, you decide whether you want to incur or not. For example, ad campaign, R&D, a sales campaign I want to do, I decide what is called take a decision, discretionary. Whereas rent for the shop floor, depreciation on the building what I have, depreciation on the machinery, committed. The day I bought the machinery, bloody well I have committed for depreciation on that machinery out there. So what we call it as, these are all what we call it as committed fixed cost out there. Fixed cost can also be, what do you call it as, semi-variable in this case. It can be at a relevant range. I have given a beautiful example out here. That is, you assume office space available on rental rate at 30,000 per year for 1000 square feet. Now, in the 1000 square feet, I can accommodate, let us say, about 100 people out there I have accommodated. Now, five more guys join, I know that I can't accommodate in the 1000 square feet, I have to take the next piece of space on rent. I can't take it in part, I have to take it only in 1000 square feet. If I take it 1000 square feet, then what happens? My rent for the year jumps from 30 to 60,000 rupees out, $60,000 out there. So what happened? It is what is called as the fixed cost is fixed for a relevant range, then basically it moves up out there. I can take an example. I package and transport the output, 100 units I can pack in one truck and send it. I manufacture bloody 110 units. Now for the 10 units I have to hire the full second truck to transport that unit. So what happens? My cost actually doubles. That is what we call it as a step up fixed cost, and that is what we basically in this particular case, it moves in a step fashion out there. Multiple classifications of cost, visit direct, indirect, variable and fixed. Now please, the cost can have any of these combinations, direct and variable, direct and fixed. Direct and fixed can it be? Yes, I am going to give you an example. Indirect and variable, indirect and fixed, etc. Now let us take an example and see this. A simple example. I picked up a simple example from a textbook. Let me confess, I picked up this example, this picture from the textbook out there. One of the textbooks which I was reading. Example says BMW X6 is an example what we take. We see here the examples of various combinations. We have talking about examples from a BMW X6 manufacturing plant out in Salzburg, whatever. We see the direct, what is the direct cost? Direct cost and variable cost out there, direct variable. That is cost object BMW X6 produced, that is what it is produced. The tires that are used for in the assembly line for that particular car, manufacturing that car, the 4 tires that are used for in this is basically variable. Every car that comes out, it has a 4 plus 1 donut, 5 tires out there. Imagine any of what you call it as the any other material, the engines out there or any of the wipers, let us say wipers. Every car that gets manufactured and comes out has 2 plus 1 rear, 3 wipers out there that gets manufactured. So what happens? I buy 100 wipers, it will get divided by 3 because 2 plus 1 and then so many cars are manufactured. Let us take tires, I buy 400 tires, 4 tires for each car, 4 or 5 tires for each car, BMW 4, let us say keep only the 4, let us keep the donut or let us keep the spare tire away out there. 100 tires I buy, 100 divided by 4, naturally so many cars are basically getting manufactured in the process out there. I can say direct relationship out there. Now indirect cost variable, you see that on the next quadrant out there. Power in that plant out there, power usage is metered at the plant where multiple products are assembled, BMW X6, BMW X3, X2, whatever it is, A2, A6, all kinds of whatever products are basically manufactured. Power consumption in the factory varies indirect, that is what we said. Now let us move to indirect and fixed cost out there. I am talking about the least cost for the factory, indirect cost shared by every product out there, it is fixed, it does not have any relationship to how many X6 you are producing out there, these cars. Move to the next, direct and fixed. I have a supervisor who is solely recruited for supervising the production of BMW X6 and I pay him salary. So naturally what happens? It is a direct cost because he is supervising only BMW X6, not anything else. And the cost is fixed out there because I am paying him salary which is fixed out there. Direct, his expenditure is directly attributable to the product out there, but it is a fixed cost out there, it can be. It does not vary. For example, this month you manufacture 300, this month you manufacture 300 BMW X6, his salary is the same. next month you manufacture 340 BMW X6, his salary is the same. What happens? Salary is fixed, but his salary is paid only for BMW X6 supervision, nothing else. So what happens? That is the beautiful, what we call it as direct fixed cost out there. So you can see this example. This example is from a textbook. Let me repeat, is from a textbook. I have picked it up and I am just displaying this out here in this particular case. This helps you understand fixed variable out there and so on. So bottom line, what we have covered today, we covered what is a cost, definition of a cost, different kinds of cost, and classifications of cost into fixed, variable, direct and indirect. This is what we have covered today. Further, we move to the next session. Thank you.